Hello, Megan, again in the Tips Therapist Tested. It's nice to have you again here.
Nice to be back.
I have a question for you, which was one of the questions of our audience. You know, in life, we don't always get what we want, and
Mhm.
sometimes we have to really stick with what is happening, even though we don't like it. So the question is, how do we accept a situation that we don't like?
Okay, so I think it's firstly important for us to clarify what we mean by acceptance, right? So acceptance doesn't mean liking or approving of a difficult situation or feelings, but it's instead about acknowledging them and allowing them to be present without trying to fight them, avoid them, or change them, right? So it's about recognizing reality as it is rather than what we wish it to be. So if you can imagine holding down a beach ball underwater with one hand, and the harder you try to push it down, the more force it uses to try to pop back up, and the more focus we have to put on holding it down. So it's similar to how we handle unwanted feelings or emotions or situations. The more we try to push them down, the more they demand our attention. So
Yeah, indeed.
acceptance is like letting that ball float beside you. It's still there, but it's not taking all our energy to manage.
It's very energy draining, absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the first tip I have for you on that is what I call mindful acknowledgement. So it's letting myself take a moment to acknowledge how I feel about the situation or the thing that I'm finding difficult to accept. So I get into a comfortable position in my chair and I ask myself, what do I feel? And I'm here labeling my emotions. And then I ask myself, where do I feel that in my body? So it helps me mindfully acknowledge the emotion without judgment. And then I ask myself, and instead of asking myself, how do I get rid of this? I ask myself, what do I need in order to help me move through this emotion more comfortably? So instead of figuring out how to get rid of it, it's really focusing on giving myself some self-compassion and moving towards trying to meet my own needs.
Yeah. Instead
Okay.
of the question, how can I get rid of it?
Yeah.
That's a good point, eh? How
Yeah.
can I walk through it more comfortably?
Yeah.
Okay.
The second tip I have for you is focusing on what we can control. So, a lot of the times, the situations that I don't like but have to accept are things that are out of my control. So, what I do is I take a piece of paper and I draw a circle in the middle. And outside the circle, I make notes on the thing or the event that bothers me that's completely out of my control. And inside the circle, I make notes on the thing or situation that I do have some control in. And I start by picking one easy thing to manage and adding more tasks when I feel that I have the capability to take it on. And this exercise helps me feel like I do have some agency over it.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last tip I have for you today is a gratitude practice. So a lot of the time when the thing that I need to accept is less momentary and it takes a bit of time to adjust to, like a loss of some sort, an unattained dream or goal, or like a period of financial hardship or even a breakup, it can really have an impact on clouding my vision, making my colorful world seem a little bit less. So a daily practice of gratitude can really help refocus my attention to things that I appreciate. And this tip is really not used to deny or ignore the distress that I'm feeling, but to remind myself of the other positive aspects of my life. So daily gratitude can be either starting the day or ending the day, making a note of something that I feel grateful about on my day, right? Or something that you feel grateful about in your life in general. And it's important here that we really mean what we note down. So I won't write a rainless day if I don't mean it, right? At the beginning of this practice, it may take some time to think about the things that you're grateful for, especially if you've just been hit by this situation that you really don't like. But with repetition and consistency, we'll find it easier and easier to come up with them.
Yeah, I totally agree. What I keep from these things that you just said, these wonderful tips you said, the first one is that, you know, when we realize that we don't like something in our life, maybe a situation, maybe a feeling, or another comment that I got in the YouTube channel was a person that didn't like their body and they
Mhm,
wanted to find a way to accept something that they don't like.
mhm,
So there will be things like that. And when we don't know how to handle it, we're just stuck in this hopelessness, as if there's nothing we can do. And we have to accept a miserable life of being in something we don't like. But with your tips, you just shared three things. There's at least three things
Yeah.
that we can do, even
Mhm.
though we don't like. We're not as hopeless as we think we are when we are faced with circumstances that we cannot change. And this is what I loved about all these three tips you gave us.
Really just about finding the self-compassion for yourself, right? Because all these things that we don't like and we're finding difficult to accept, it is really distressing. And
Yeah,
we're not trying to delude ourselves to liking them or being happy with them, but it's really focusing on asking ourselves what we need and
yeah,
refocusing attention on the things that we can do.
yeah, exactly. And you bring back the power on the
Hmm.
person.
Yeah.
We're not defined by external circumstances. If the circumstances change, then I will be happy. But now you shift that and you say, I can change how I feel about my life because
Yeah.
I still have tools. One, two,
Yeah.
three, you just shared.
Yeah.
And the second thing that I want to again emphasize is what you said in the last tip about self-compassion. It takes practice.
Yeah.
All these three tips you said, they can do miracles, but
Hmm.
they're not going to shift everything in our world within a day.
Exactly.
It takes
Exactly.
practice. Some days we're not gonna feel it. Some days it's
Mhm.
gonna work. Some days it's not gonna
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
But it's the consistency that will eventually reverse the situation. Thank you so much. If you want to work with Megan, you know where to find her at antiloneliness.com.
Yeah.
She's as amazing as you see her now.
Mhm.
And tell us a little bit about your approach and the people that you like working with.
Okay, so I help individuals that struggle with anxiety. So whether it be social anxiety, work or student life stresses, constant overthinking, and low moods. I also help individuals with low self-esteem and self-worth. And I'm an integrative psychologist. I've been trained at CBT, but I also use approaches from schema therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy. And I individualize my treatment to meet each person's needs.
Of course. Thank you so much.
No problem.